I think the key to anything is make sure you enjoy what you do and don't expect to go from 0 to 100 overnight. Building's something that takes a lot of time and experience. You have to work on multiple projects to get an understanding of different techniques and the way things happen. And all good things come with time. So I think that's the most important thing.
Welcome to Building Perspective, the Master Builders SA podcast. I'm your host, Will Frogley. Join me as I speak with some characters in the building and construction industry.
With a house frame made from true core steel, your home is built to last. Choose the inner strength of true core steel.
It's fantastic to be joined today by Matt Pezzuto, a still youngish fella who's very humble, giving it a great crack in the South Australian industry. So much so that he was recently named the Master Builders Australia Young Builder of the Year. That's nationwide, a tremendous honour for a guy who's been working very hard, for a long time, and I think it was just rewards. Matt Pezzuto, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Thank you very much for having me.
I'll get to your background and stuff, but I mean, it must have been a big honour to get that recognition on the national stage.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You work every day and you go to work and you don't really look for these accolades, but it's really nice when you're recognised, especially nationally, and it's really an achievement not just for myself, but definitely for our company. A lot of people, and I spoke about it on the night, there's a lot of people that work on construction projects and should be recognised. And that's not just people within our company, subcontractors, architects, consultants. The amount of man hours that are put towards projects is really unbelievable.
Yeah, it's absolutely a team effort. And you are the managing director, I believe, of Horizon Constructions. Is that what you call yourself?
Yeah, that is what I call myself these days. Yep.
Yeah, good man. And we'll get into more about Horizon, but I guess really let's talk about your journey through building construction. Did you always want to work in the industry? How did you get going? What did you do before going out on your own to run your own business? These are the types of questions I think people would want to know.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting. I remember sort of year 10 when I was at school, we had to decide where to go for work experience. And I was really lucky. My uncle at the time owned a small construction company that worked a little bit in residential construction, but also into commercial construction. And I remember sort of going, what do I do here? I've got sort of no idea what sort of direction I wanted to go in. And prior to that, I remember spending a few sort of weekends and a couple of school holidays where I sort of worked with him as well and sort of had really found it quite enjoyable. And at the time, Mum said to me, she goes, why don't you do it with your uncle? And I thought, that's probably a good idea. I did enjoy when I sort of did a bit of labouring on site and those sorts of things. So I actually went out into his office, and I think it was a 2-week process or something along those lines. And it was really good because he showed me not only how it was on site, but also from an office experience and probably the different areas that you could go in as well. And I think from that, I really enjoyed it. And I thought, this is for me. I always had a keen interest in building, in business, And I thought, this is probably something that maybe one day you could own your own business as well as an avenue into owning a company. So that was probably where I first gained my real passion for the industry. And after that, I worked many school holidays with him as well. First term, second term, third term, and Christmas holidays as well. And sort of the more and more I worked with him, I think the more I knew the industry was for me as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So finishing high school, what happened then?
Yeah, well, finishing high school, again, my uncle was a big influence on my career and also my life. So I remember going through the books and sort of trying to work out what I was going to do. Obviously, you have to list sort of where you're going. And I wasn't really a huge academic at school as well or anything along those lines. So I remember looking at the construction management course. I think that was my number one avenue of what I wanted to do. And then I actually put carpentry down as well as my second career choice. So it was always going to be in those two sort of areas that I looked at what I would do. But I think I sort of gravitated more towards the uni degree. But in hindsight, if I didn't do that, I probably would have gone down the carpentry avenue.
Yeah, good stuff. And was Marshall Brougham the first employee you had after finishing uni?
Yeah, it was, and I was really lucky, and I still speak very highly of Marshall Brougham and still have a very good relationship.
Company.
It is
Good people.
very good people and a very nice family as well. But it was sort of, I think I had just chosen to go into doing construction management at uni, and my uncle said, it's probably a good time that you go out and maybe speak to some other builders and actually get into a company where you think you might have a career. And I remember it was my first year of uni, and I put out a number of resumes to different type of builders as well. And there were two builders who came back to me, one being Marshall Brougham and one being a different company who's actually not around anymore, unfortunately. But I remember also sitting down with my uncle, and he said, they're a good company. They'll teach you the right ways of doing things and those sorts of things. And I think that's one of the things that I look at sort of maybe younger kids these days. What they were really good at is they actually taught you and took the time. There was Daryl Crebin and also Norm Nichols, who's since retired, but they spent time with you actually explaining things, and that was really a key, I think, to getting a good grounding in the industry.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and they are a very well regarded business, seen as a very ethical company. So that doesn't surprise me at all to hear that feedback. So you mentioned getting your foot in the door there. That's something that I know is of great interest to a lot of uni students. What advice would you give a young person who's doing their degree, coming to an end? How do they break into the building industry?
Yeah, well, I think at the time I sort of, I had just finished school. I was going, well, I need a bit of pocket money here as well, and what could help me maybe long term in my career. And that's when I decided, rather than sort of working at a bottle shop or something like that, to see if I could get into the industry. I was really lucky because I got taken on first year out of school, and traditionally a lot of building companies probably would take you on, second year.
A bit later, yeah.
A bit later. And I think that was put down to me having worked a little bit during school holidays, obviously with my uncle and having a bit more of an understanding of the industry. But I think the key to anything is make sure you enjoy what you do and don't expect to go from 0 to 100 overnight. Building's something that takes a lot of time and experience. You have to work on multiple projects to get an understanding of different techniques and the way things happen. And all good things come with time. So I think that's the most important thing. No one can make you learn. So ask as many questions as you can. And no question is a dumb question as well.
Yeah, great advice, Matt. And what was the position? What was your first position at Marshall Brougham?
Yeah, I think I got a degree in photocopying to start with.
Well, that's it though. You have to start from the bottom up, right? That's so right. Important. Yeah, you're not going to be running the business and in your first year, are you?
Correct. So first of all we did was you did photocopying. You'd help the estimator chase subcontractors, maybe in a tender, making phone call, but all those things. You start listening and you start learning and you start understanding why certain things happen. So, as much as those things may seem, why am I sort of doing this at the time? They are things that help you down the track in your career, and you start putting pieces together. So that was probably what we did originally. I studied, I think I got my course cut down to 3.5 years because I was working during that period and was able to get away with not doing the practical experience because of it. I would do sort of every time I wasn't at uni, I was at Marshall Brougham and we were doing sort of those mundane tasks. But then later on, as I finished uni, I did a little bit of estimating, went into a bit of contract administration and also project management. But I think the beauty of some of these smaller companies, although M&B obviously do quite large projects, is that you get a pretty rounded, you're pretty rounded with all the skills that you take on. So you know how to price a project, you know how to contract administrate a project. And at times we were on site as site managers as well, or filling in the gap. So I think that's really part of helping me going into my own business, is being all rounded in different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. That experience you were able to gain at Marshall Brougham has obviously served you really well going out on your own to run Horizon Constructions. Tell us about that. Was it hard to make the jump? Obviously you had a great relationship with Andrew and the team at Marshall Brougham, but then I think the prospect of running your own show, it seems like, just proved irresistible, right?
Yeah, it was. it was definitely difficult, but it was something I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I suppose that sort of made me do it. I was probably, I did it before I had kids as well, and I had just gotten married. Also made the jump probably a little bit easy because you didn't have any dependents that were relying on you as well.
Things change, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, we're in our 11th year now, so it was 10 years ago. And I look back and I sort of wonder sometimes how we've actually been able to progress how we have. But, I remember our first project was a HSC, a bank demolition project that was worth about $1,600.
Yeah.
So, we started with that. I think we then did something for Banner Aged Care, which was might have been a $16,000 job. And then slowly things have built up. So, again, going into your own business, very naive at the time, thinking, oh, yeah, we'll get all these multi-million-dollar contracts. And, I did it at another company. Surely people will trust me doing it here. But I suppose when you don't have any runs on the board,
spot on,
as a company or people, it's very hard to get architects and consultants to recommend you to clients because they don't want to end up with egg on their face as well. So it's been something that, took a long time to get into, but after proving to certain people that we could do the work, we've been able to have opportunity upon opportunity, which has been really good.
Yeah, I think it's been fantastic to see and hear how you've just had that trajectory where you have proved yourself at the very bottom, because in our industry, you're talking about big bucks for clients and they want to see a track record, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And, I suppose, and I keep on saying it to people, everything is easy when things go well. It's probably when there's issues on site that people's true characters is shown. And I think one of the things that we really strive for is to be an easygoing company and a solution-based company as well. So, nothing's too hard. There will be problems on a building project. It's just the nature of the industry, but it's up to us to sort those issues out and work with the clients and the architects and consultants and do it for the benefit of the project.
How many people did you have in the Horizon team when you very first started? Well, you said the first job was what, $1,600 a demolition? Was that $1,600?
Yeah,
$1,600. That was your first job.
$1,600.
Things have changed, haven't they? For example, what's the value of some of the school building projects you've delivered recently?
So we say our bread and butter work is that sort of $0 to $20 million mark these days. So things have changed substantially. Now, when I originally started it, my uncle was involved as well. I remember the first year we really struggled to make a wage or anything along those lines. And my wife had just gotten pregnant, I think, at the time. So he sort of stepped aside and said, I've got another business. You run with this, and at least that way you can get a wage. So, and after that, we picked up a couple projects and slowly it sort of grew. But, you talk about sort of growth and how things have changed, but I still go back to those days, and I still sometimes wonder how we're going to get enough projects through a year to pay overheads and what costs are these days. But I suppose luckily there's a few more people we can call.
Yeah. So the business from humble beginnings, was there one project that was, a good value job that was successful that really kind of gave you that confidence or reinforced that belief that, I can do this, I can keep getting bigger and better? Yeah,
I think in our second year, we had a project that actually had a pretty significant issue on it. At the time, it was a modular building project. The contractor was a nominated subcontractor, so we had to use them. And these modules came to site and there were issues with them everywhere, not going too much into the details of the issues, but there were things that we believe could be structural and be detrimental to the long-term longevity of those modules. And the client at the time, which was Catholic Education Office, we raised it to their attention and we worked through the issues. But I think importantly what we did was we managed to work with the subcontractor who at the time no one sort of had confidence with because of the issues and how they would solve the problem. And we were able to work with the client, the consultants, the subcontractors, the subcontractors of those subcontractors as well, and make sure everyone got paid on the project and get the project rectified. And I think because the subcontractor at the time was nominated on the project and we had to use them, we built a very strong relationship with that particular client, and we still do a lot of work with them today.
That's fantastic. I can remember the first time I met you, Matt, and the first time you came on my radar really was when my previous boss, Rob Lucas, actually called me and said, there's a guy I was talking to on the weekend, Matt Pezzuto, who's got an issue he needs help with. And I said, give you a call. This was when I was policy director at MBA. And I can't even really remember what the issue was, to be honest, but I vividly remember that and the first time we interacted. So it's been great to see your business keep growing ever since, you know.
I think at the time we were looking at some of the pre-qual for DIT, and we had a bit of a discussion about it.
That's right.
And I think with your help, we actually changed some of the categories as well.
That's right.
Which was quite good. Yeah.
Thanks for jogging my memory. I do remember now. It's just sometimes some of them become blurs over the years. So
yeah, that's right. But I look at that sort of experience that we spoke about, and I suppose that did give us a lot of confidence, thinking that no matter what the issue is, you can overcome it.
Yeah.
And I think it gave a lot of obviously gave that client and then architects down the track a lot of confidence as well. And it's funny how something that you could look at as a bad situation can actually turn into quite a positive thing for your company as well.
Absolutely. So how old are you now, Matt? 38, 39?
I've just turned 40.
Just turned 40. So that was your last year of eligibility to win the award?
I just ticked over in January.
Good thing you just stuck that in right at the death knell. So well done on that.
Yeah.
I mean, you are still a young guy in the industry to be running their own business, doing the projects of the size you are doing. Where do you want to take Horizon from here? I mean, you've got a bit of a niche, don't you, with school building? I think you do quite a bit of work for Catholic schools, is my understanding.
Yeah, we do. I think, the one thing that we keep on saying is that we don't necessarily have to or want to be the biggest builder in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Our biggest thing is forming relationships with clients and probably being the builder of choice rather than, being a builder that needs projects just to keep, hundreds of people busy and those sorts of things. So I suppose from our point of view, we just look at every day as it comes. We don't necessarily have any huge goals or aspirations in terms of turning it into, a national company or anything like that. But I think what we do want to do is have clients wanting us on their projects. So it's about delivering every project. You're only as good as your last project. And it is a difficult industry. So I think we just look at doing the simple things well, and down the line, I think that gives you further success as well.
Yeah, I think that's a smart approach, knowing there is room for everyone in the industry. They're areas that people specialise in and just do it really well and get a really good reputation as a result.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I guess tell us a bit about your relationship with your subcontractors, because that's obviously a crucial element to any successful building business.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's interesting with subcontractors. Sometimes there's an approach, especially in the commercial industry, of an us against you approach. Now, we're very different to that. We do not have a building company without subcontractors. And I suppose the thing that we look at is people that we can form relationships with if things do go bad, who can you talk with and who can you resolve things with? Because like I said, everything's easy when everything's going well, but when there is an issue, who can you rely on? So they're the type of subcontractors that we like to form relationships with. We're very easygoing. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has issues. And what we like to say with our subcontractors, if you do have an issue, come to us, because we can help you. Whether it's an issue with certain materials, whether it's a financial issue, whether they can't get labour for a particular project. And we've done that on multiple projects where, we've purchased material for certain people who haven't been able to because they've been in a spot of bother, or they haven't been able to get labour. So we've been able to find labour at a decent rate from other companies. So I suppose we're very reliant on subcontractors, like all builders are, but we want to be known again as a builder that works with people.
That's great. I mean, those relationships are always really important, but I think over the past few years where there has been such a shortage of labour, they've just been absolutely crucial.
Yeah, and we've seen it a lot with subcontractors. We talk about earlier on in the industry, the material price rise. Now there's probably the labour issues, and we've seen, some companies being decimated because they've lost a couple of key people, and that's had a bit of a flow-on effect. So, we all got to stick together because we're all in it together, and we just got to work through these issues.
What's your kind of view about how the South Australian industry is tracking? What do you think the trend is going to be over the next 10 years? It seems like our industry, for all its challenges, has hung in there better than most other states and territories. Do you think that will continue?
Yeah, it's interesting. For the first time, you sort of see a lot of upside, don't you, in South Australia? And there's a lot of positive talk, which is always, one of the key things to success. We were only talking about it in our office, looking at our workflow and potential projects. I think one of the interesting things that have happened lately is, building costs have obviously gone up. So, probably need to look at new ways of how we can try and get some of these costs back down, because we are seeing, especially in the private sector, some things becoming a little bit unaffordable for sort of the mum and dad owners. The government sector and obviously the private and institutional sector is actually going very strong at the moment. And it feels like there is a pipeline of work. So speaking to architects and consultants, they're all busy documenting, they're all busy hiring people, which is very positive.
I think population growth is the key for me. South Australia's population growth has been a big problem for many years. In the last few years, we have seen a change there, and that is driving demand for building construction. So we've just got to have that continue. It used to be the trend that all our young people were moving to Melbourne and Sydney. A lot of migrants were all going to Melbourne and Sydney, etc. So for me, the key for us having a strong building construction industry and economy is we've got to have population growth.
Yeah, that's right. And I totally agree with that. And that's one of the things we really want to do. And it's not just for our children's generation, but also their children's generations, is you want people to stay in the state. And I think a key with some of these projects will be, we're only looking at some of the predicted labour shortages that could possibly impact the industry. You don't want people getting subcontractors from interstate. You want the money staying into the state. So trying to get people to move to Adelaide and get our population up is definitely very important.
Yeah, and a big part of that, I think, is definitely having events and stuff that will keep young people here. I think things like the Live Golf, things like the Gather Round and stuff like that, they're really important. We can't let Adelaide become a kind of cemetery with traffic lights and think we're going to keep young people here.
Yeah, that's right. But you're right. I look at cousins and younger family members. They've all wanted to make that Melbourne or Sydney move and to try and keep them in Adelaide. And I think finally we're getting a bit of traction with that as well. So it's probably just educating people.
I agree. I think, particularly since COVID, I see a lot more South Australian pride out in the community, and people sense that. I think that maybe they didn't fully appreciate the great lifestyle we do have here in South Australia, and it is more affordable than other places around the country, and you don't get stuck in traffic for hours going to work to and from work every day. So I think there is a newfound appreciation for living here, but we can't just rest on our laurels. We've got to be continually trying to make it an exciting and comfortable place to live. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, Matt, it's been fantastic having you on the podcast today. It's been great to see you and your business continue to rise since when I first met you. And, mate, I was thrilled for you when I saw you win that award on the national stage in Perth in November. You're a humble guy who's worked really hard for everything he has. And it was a great moment, mate. So congratulations once again. And like I said, thanks for being with us on the podcast. Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Will. Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot, Matt. Cheers. Thank you. Thanks for joining me on Building Perspective. For more information on Master Builders or our guests, please visit our website at mbasa.com.au.